The California sun beat down mercilessly as I dragged the garden hose across our cracked driveway, cursing under my breath. Saturday morning car washing wasn't exactly my idea of fun, but Miranda had been dropping hints about the Subaru's sorry state for weeks. "It reflects poorly on both of us, Silas," she'd said in that lawyer voice of hers. Right, because a dusty car was somehow going to tank her career at Morrison and Associates. I'm Silas Bruce, 38 years old, and I sell cars for a living. Not exactly the glamorous profession my wife had probably envisioned when we met in college, but it pays the bills. Well, some of them anyway. Miranda's the real breadwinner in our family, pulling down 6 figures as a corporate attorney while I hustle used Hondas and Toyotas at Marty's Auto World. The soap suds ran down the windshield as I scrubbed, my mind wandering to the argument we'd had the night before. Something about me embarrassing her at the company barbecue by telling that joke about lawyers and sharks. Apparently her boss Dana hadn't found it as amusing as I had. "Dad, you missed a spot," came a voice from behind me. Leah, our 17-year-old daughter, stood in the doorway wearing ripped jeans and an attitude that could cut glass. "Thanks for the supervision," I muttered, moving to the passenger side. "Maybe you could grab a rag and help instead of critiquing my technique." She rolled her eyes and disappeared back into the house, probably to update her TikTok followers about her loser father's car washing skills. Kids these days. I opened the passenger door to clean the interior, pulling out the floor mats and shaking them vigorously. That's when I saw it, a corner of brown leather poking out from under the seat. I reached down and pulled out a worn wallet, the kind that looked like it had seen better days. My stomach dropped as I opened it. Derek Caldwell's driver's license stared back at me, along with 3 credit cards, a gym membership, and a key card from the Sunset Motel off Interstate 5. The expiration dates on everything were current. Very current. Derek Caldwell, Miranda's ex-boyfriend from law school. The one she'd supposedly cut all contact with 2 years ago after I'd found some friendly text messages between them. The one who'd caused our biggest fight in 15 years of marriage. The one who was supposed to be ancient history. I sat down hard on the passenger seat, wallet trembling in my hands. The leather was worn smooth around the edges, like someone had been carrying it regularly. There was even a photo tucked behind the license, Derek and Miranda at some restaurant I didn't recognize, both of them laughing at something off-camera. Miranda was wearing a dress I'd never seen before. "Guess they don't make breakups like they used to," I said aloud, my voice cracking slightly. Or wives, for that matter. The motel keycard felt like it was burning my fingers. The Sunset Motel wasn't exactly a 5-star establishment. It was the kind of place people went when they didn't want to be seen, when they had something to hide. I heard Miranda's car pulling into the driveway and quickly shoved the wallet into my back pocket. She climbed out of her BMW, looking polished and professional even on a Saturday morning in her yoga pants and designer t-shirt. "How's the car coming along?" she asked, giving me a quick kiss on the cheek. Her perfume smelled different, something floral and expensive that I didn't recognize. "Fine," I managed, trying to keep my voice steady. "Just finishing up the interior." She nodded and headed toward the house, her phone already buzzing with what she claimed were work calls. Always work calls, even on weekends. I watched her go, noting how she avoided making eye contact, how her shoulders seemed tense. 20 minutes later, I'd finished washing the car, but my mind was racing. I needed to think, needed to figure out what this meant. The wallet could be old, left over from before their supposed breakup. But the keycard looked fresh, and those credit cards definitely weren't expired. I walked into the house to find Miranda in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone with a slight smile on her face. She looked up when I entered, the smile fading quickly. "All done?" she asked, setting the phone face down on the counter. "Yeah, she's sparkling clean now. Should reflect well on both of us." The sarcasm in my voice was probably too obvious, but I couldn't help it. Miranda frowned. "Is something wrong? You seem off." For a moment, I considered showing her the wallet, demanding an explanation right then and there, but something held me back. Maybe it was the lawyer training she'd drilled into me over the years. Never ask a question you don't already know the answer to. "Just tired," I said instead. "Think I'll head to the gym for a while, work off some stress." "On a Saturday? You never go to the gym on Saturdays." "Well, maybe it's time I started changing my routine, mixing things up a little." I grabbed my gym bag from the hall closet, the wallet still burning a hole in my pocket. As I drove toward Murphy's boxing gym, my mind kept circling back to that photo. Miranda looked happy in it, genuinely happy in a way I hadn't seen in months. When was the last time she'd looked at me like that? When was the last time we'd laughed together about anything? The gym was mostly empty, just a few die-hard regulars working the heavy bags. I changed into my workout clothes and started hitting the speed bag, trying to lose myself in the rhythm. But every punch seemed to echo with the same question. How long had this been going on? Murphy himself wandered over after about 20 minutes, his weathered face creased with concern. You're hitting that thing like it owes you money, Silas. Everything okay at home? I stopped punching and wiped sweat from my forehead. Murphy had been running this gym for 30 years, and he'd seen his share of troubled men working out their problems on the equipment. Just marriage stuff, I said, not meeting his eyes. The lawyer wife again? Something like that, Murphy nodded knowingly. Women like that, they're complicated. Smart, ambitious, used to getting what they want. Sometimes what they want ain't what's best for them, if you catch my meaning. I caught his meaning all right. The question was, what was I going to do about it? That evening, Miranda worked late at the office. Or at least, that's what she told me. I spent the time researching the Sunset Motel online, memorizing its layout and location. It was a 40-minute drive from our house, tucked away behind a gas station and a Denny's, the kind of place that rented rooms by the hour and didn't ask too many questions. When Miranda finally came home around 10 o'clock, she seemed distracted and tired. She claimed she'd been working on a difficult contract negotiation, but I noticed she kept her phone close and jumped every time it buzzed. How was the gym? She asked as we got ready for bed. Productive. I think I'm going to start going more regularly. Maybe take up some new hobbies, meet some new people. She paused in the middle of brushing her teeth. New people? Yeah, you know how it is. Same routine, same faces all the time. A guy needs some variety in his life. I watched her reflection in the bathroom mirror, looking for any reaction. Her hand tightened slightly on the toothbrush, but her voice remained casual. That sounds nice. Just don't get too carried away with any new friendships. You know how you can be sometimes. How I can be sometimes. Right, like I was the one with the trust issues in this marriage. Sunday morning brought the kind of clarity that only comes from a sleepless night and too much coffee. I'd spent hours staring at the ceiling, the wallet hidden in my sock drawer like some kind of toxic secret. By dawn, I'd made my decision. If Miranda was playing games, I was going to learn the rules. I waited until she left for her Sunday morning yoga class, another recent addition to her routine, before firing up my laptop. Amazon Prime had exactly what I needed. A small GPS tracker, the kind worried parents use to monitor teenage drivers. 2-day delivery, no questions asked. While I waited for my surveillance equipment to arrive, I decided to do some old-fashioned detective work. Miranda's credit card statements were stored in our shared file cabinet, and as her husband, I had every legal right to review our family finances. What I found made my stomach churn. 3 charges at the Sunset Motel over the past 2 months. Always on Thursday evenings, always for the same amount. But there were other charges, too. Expensive lingerie from boutiques I'd never heard of, champagne and room service from restaurants near the motel, even charges at a high-end spa for services Miranda had never mentioned. I was funding my wife's affair with her ex-boyfriend. The irony would have been hilarious if it wasn't so devastating. My phone buzzed with a text from Marty, my boss at the dealership. Hope you're enjoying your weekend, Bruce. Try not to let the wife boss you around too much. LOL. If only he knew. The GPS tracker arrived Tuesday afternoon, a tiny device no bigger than a matchbox. The instructions were simple enough: peel off the adhesive backing and stick it somewhere inconspicuous on the target vehicle. I chose a spot under Miranda's rear bumper, hidden behind the license plate bracket. That evening, I downloaded the tracking app and tested it. A little blue dot appeared on my phone screen, showing Miranda's BMW parked in our driveway. Technology was amazing and terrifying. Wednesday night, Miranda announced she had to work late Thursday evening. Big client meeting, she explained, not quite meeting my eyes. Might be home pretty late, so don't wait up. No problem, I replied, forcing a smile. I was thinking of hitting the gym anyway, maybe grabbing a beer with the guys afterward. She nodded, already distracted by something on her phone. I noticed she was texting someone, her fingers moving quickly across the screen. When she caught me watching, she turned the phone face down on the table. Work stuff, she said. Of course. Thursday evening couldn't come fast enough. Miranda left the house at 6:30, dressed in a black cocktail dress that definitely wasn't appropriate for a client meeting. She'd spent an hour getting ready, applying makeup with the kind of care usually reserved for special occasions. I waited 15 minutes before checking the tracking app. The blue dot was moving steadily south on Interstate 5, heading directly toward the Sunset Motel. My hands were shaking as I grabbed my keys and followed. The 40-minute drive felt like an eternity. I kept the tracking app open on my passenger seat, watching Miranda's dot finally stop in what had to be the motel parking lot. By the time I arrived, her BMW was parked next to a silver Mercedes that I recognized from Derek's Facebook profile. I parked across the street at a gas station, close enough to see the motel entrance, but far enough away to avoid detection. Through my binoculars, another Amazon purchase, I could see Derek's car clearly. The license plate matched the registration information I'd found through a simple online search. My phone buzzed with a notification from the Ring doorbell at our house. Leah was arriving home from school, dumping her backpack by the front door and heading straight to her room. Normal teenage behavior, completely oblivious to the fact that her mother was currently betraying our family in a cheap motel room. I sat in my car for 2 hours, watching and waiting. A few other vehicles came and went, but Derek's Mercedes remained parked next to Miranda's BMW. Finally, around 9 o'clock, I saw movement. Derek emerged from room 237, followed a few minutes later by Miranda. They stood close together near the cars, talking in low voices. Even from a distance, their body language spoke volumes, intimate, comfortable, like this was a routine they'd performed many times before. Derek kissed her goodbye. Not a friendly peck on the cheek, but a real kiss, the kind married people share, the kind Miranda and I hadn't shared in months. I took photos with my phone, the zoom function capturing everything in crystal clear detail. Derek getting into his Mercedes, Miranda checking her appearance in her car's side mirror, both of them looking satisfied and relaxed. The drive home was a blur of rage and hurt and something else, a cold, calculating anger that surprised me with its intensity. Miranda had made me look like a fool, but she'd also made a crucial mistake. She'd underestimated me. By the time I got home, Miranda was already there, claiming she'd just arrived from her client meeting. She'd changed into casual clothes and was sitting at the kitchen table with a glass of wine, scrolling through her phone. "How was your evening?" she asked without looking up. "Productive," I said, setting my keys on the counter. "Very productive." Something in my tone made her glance up, but I was already heading upstairs. I had research to do. Derek Caldwell, it turned out, had quite an interesting life. He was a financial advisor with his own practice, divorced 2 years ago, and according to his very public social media presence, currently dating a woman named Carla Martinez. Carla was 35, worked as a marketing manager for a tech company, and based on her Instagram posts, seemed to think she was in an exclusive relationship with Derek. Poor Carla had no idea she was sharing her boyfriend with my wife. I spent the next hour crafting the perfect anonymous text message. "Your boyfriend Derek is cheating on you with a married woman named Miranda Bruce. They meet every Thursday at the Sunset Motel off I-5, room 237. Thought you should know." I sent it from a burner phone app, untraceable and anonymous. If Derek wanted to play games with other people's lives, he was about to learn that actions have consequences. Friday morning, Miranda seemed unusually cheerful, humming while she made coffee and actually kissing me goodbye before leaving for work. The guilt was probably eating at her, making her overcompensate with fake affection. Or maybe she was just happy because she'd gotten away with it again. I called in sick to work and spent the day doing more research. Miranda's law firm had strict ethics policies about personal conduct that could reflect poorly on the company. Affairs weren't explicitly forbidden, but if they involved criminal activity, like credit card fraud, that was grounds for immediate termination. I also looked into Derek's business. Financial advisors were heavily regulated, required to maintain certain ethical standards to keep their licenses. A scandal involving adultery and fraud could destroy his career just as easily as it could destroy Miranda's. The pieces were falling into place. I just needed to be patient and wait for the right moment to make my move. Saturday morning brought an interesting development. My phone buzzed with a notification from a Google alert I'd set up for Derek's name. Someone had posted a scathing review of his financial services on Yelp, calling him untrustworthy and a liar who can't be faithful to anyone. The review was signed Disappointed Client, but I had a feeling it was actually from Carla. Phase 1 of my plan was working. The following Thursday, I was ready. I'd taken the day off work, telling Marty I had a family emergency to deal with. In a way, it wasn't even a lie. Miranda went through her usual routine, claiming she had another late client meeting, spending extra time on her appearance, leaving the house in that same black cocktail dress. I waited 30 minutes before following, my phone already tracking her progress toward the Sunset Motel. This time, I wasn't going alone. Carla Martinez had responded to my anonymous tip with surprising efficiency. After confronting Derek earlier in the week, based on the angry voicemails I'd heard him leaving for Miranda, she'd agreed to meet me at the motel. She wanted to catch them in the act just as much as I did. I found Carla waiting in the gas station parking lot across from the motel, sitting in a red Honda Civic with her hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles were white. She was prettier than her photos, with dark hair and intelligent eyes that were currently blazing with fury. "You must be the husband," she said when I approached her car. "Silas Bruce. Thanks for coming." "Thank you for opening my eyes. I've been with Derek for 8 months, and I actually thought we had a future together." Her voice was steady, but I could hear the hurt underneath. "How long has this been going on?" "At least 2 months that I can prove. Probably longer." I showed her the credit card statements and photos from the previous week. "They've been using my money to fund their little romance." Carla's jaw tightened. "That bastard told me he was working late on Thursdays, building his client base. I even made him dinner last Thursday night when he came home, telling me how tired he was from all those meetings." We sat in silence for a few minutes, two people whose lives had been derailed by the same pair of liars. Finally, Carla spoke again. "What's the plan?" "Simple. We knock on their door and see what happens when their two worlds collide. And then? Then we make sure everyone knows exactly who they really are. At 8:30, both cars were parked in their usual spots outside room 237. I'd been recording everything on my phone, building a comprehensive file of evidence. Carla had been doing the same, her anger transforming into cold determination. "Ready?" I asked. She nodded, and we walked across the street together. The motel was exactly as seedy as I'd expected. Peeling paint, flickering neon signs, the smell of cigarettes and disinfectant hanging in the air. Room 237 was on the second floor, accessible by an external staircase that creaked ominously under our weight. I could hear voices from inside the room, Miranda's laugh followed by Derek's deeper chuckle. They sounded relaxed, comfortable, completely unaware that their secret was about to explode. Carla raised her hand to knock, then paused. "Once we do this, there's no going back." "There's already no going back," I replied. "They made that choice for us." She knocked loudly, 3 sharp raps that echoed in the evening air. The voices inside stopped immediately. I could picture them looking at each other in panic, wondering who could possibly know they were there. "Room service," Carla called out, her voice artificially cheerful. "We didn't order any room service," came Derek's voice, suspicious and wary. "Complimentary champagne from the management," I added, trying to disguise my voice. There was a long pause, then the sound of footsteps approaching the door. The peephole darkened as someone looked out, then I heard Derek's sharp intake of breath. "Oh, shit!" The door opened slowly, revealing Derek in a hotel bathrobe, his hair disheveled and his face pale with shock. Behind him, I could see Miranda sitting on the edge of the bed, frantically trying to pull on her clothes. "Hello, Derek," Carla said sweetly. "Fancy meeting you here?" Derek's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. "Carla, I can explain?" "I'm sure you can. You're very creative with your explanations." She pushed past him into the room, and I followed, pulling out my phone to record everything. Miranda had managed to get her dress back on, but her makeup was smudged and her hair was a mess. When she saw me, her face went completely white. "Silas, how did you find you? It wasn't that hard, Miranda. You left a trail of evidence that a blind man could follow." I held up Derek's wallet, the one I'd found under her car seat. "You might want to be more careful with your boyfriend's belongings." Derek snatched the wallet from my hand, his face flushing red. "You had no right to go through my personal property." "Your personal property was in my wife's car, being paid for with my credit cards. I'd say that gives me some rights." Carla was standing near the bed, taking in the scene, the rumpled sheets, the empty champagne bottle, Miranda's discarded lingerie on the floor. 8 months, Derek. 8 months I wasted on you while you were screwing around with her." "It's not what you think," Derek started, but Carla cut him off with a bitter laugh. "Really? Because it looks like exactly what I think. It looks like you're a lying, cheating piece of garbage who can't keep his promises to anyone." Miranda finally found her voice. "Silas, please, let's discuss this at home, privately, like adults." "Adults?" I couldn't help laughing. Adults don't sneak around behind their spouse's back, funding affairs with joint credit cards. Adults don't lie to their families for months while they play house with their ex-boyfriends. I pulled out my phone and showed them the screen, a live video recording that I'd been streaming to a private YouTube channel. Adults also don't get caught on camera in cheap motels. Miranda's face went from white to green. "You're recording this?" "Every word, every lie, every pathetic excuse you're about to make." I turned the camera toward Derek, who was trying to back away toward the bathroom. "How about you, Derek? Any words of wisdom for your girlfriend here? Any explanation for why you've been lying to both of us?" Derek's composure finally cracked completely. "This is harassment. You can't just barge in here and what? Catch you in the act? expose the truth, hold you accountable for your actions. Carla stepped closer to him, her voice rising. You told me you loved me. You talked about moving in together, about meeting my parents, all while you were sneaking around with her every Thursday night. Carla, please, just let me explain. She slapped him. Hard. The sound echoed through the small room like a gunshot. There's nothing to explain, Derek. You made your choice. You chose to be a liar and a cheat, and now you get to live with the consequences. Miranda was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks in black streaks. Silas, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake. It didn't mean anything. Didn't mean anything. I turned the camera back toward her. You spent thousands of our dollars on this meaningless affair. You lied to our daughter, to your parents, to everyone who trusted you. You threw away 15 years of marriage for something that didn't mean anything? That's not fair. Fair? My voice was getting louder now, months of suppressed anger finally boiling over. You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been telling me you were unhappy instead of sneaking around behind my back. Fair would have been asking for a divorce instead of making me look like an idiot while you played house with your ex-boyfriend. Derek tried to step between us, probably thinking he was being chivalrous. Look, man, this is between Miranda and... I turned on him with all the rage I'd been holding back. This is between you and me too, asshole. You knew she was married. You knew she had a family, but you didn't care, did you? You just wanted what you wanted, and screw everyone else who got hurt. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. You're a selfish, narcissistic piece of shit who destroys other people's lives for your own entertainment. Carla was gathering her purse, apparently having seen enough. I'm done here. Derek, don't ever contact me again. Don't call, don't text, don't even look in my direction if you see me on the street. She paused at the door and looked back at Miranda. And you? I hope he was worth destroying your marriage. Because guys like Derek don't change. If he'll cheat with you, he'll cheat on you. After Carla left, the room fell silent except for Miranda's quiet sobbing. Derek was getting dressed, his movements quick and jerky like he couldn't wait to escape. This isn't over, I told them both, still recording. You've both made choices, and now you get to live with the consequences. All of them. Miranda looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. What do you want, Silas? What do you want me to do? I want you to tell the truth, on camera. I want you to admit what you've done, and I want you to explain to our daughter why her mother is a liar and a cheat. I can't. You can and you will, because if you don't, I'll make sure everyone knows anyway. Your boss, your colleagues, your parents, Leah's friends at school. Everyone will know exactly who Miranda Bruce really is. She stared at me for a long moment, then slowly nodded. Okay, I'll do it. And she did. Through tears and stammering words, Miranda confessed everything to my camera. The affair, the lies, the stolen money, all of it. Derek tried to leave during her confession, but I blocked the door until he added his own admission of guilt. By the time I left that motel room, I had everything I needed to destroy both of their lives. The only question was how far I was willing to go. The drive home from the Sunset Motel felt like traveling through a different universe. Everything looked the same strip malls, the same traffic lights, the same suburban sprawl. But I was no longer the same person who had left the house earlier that evening. I was someone harder, colder, someone who had been pushed too far and was finally ready to push back. Miranda had tried to follow me home, but I'd ignored her calls and texts. Let her figure out how to explain her late night to Leah. Let her practice her lies on someone else for a change. I spent the weekend uploading and organizing my evidence. The videos from the motel confrontation were just the beginning. I had credit card statements, photos, GPS tracking data, and recorded confessions. Any lawyer would kill for a case file this comprehensive. Monday morning, I called in sick to work again and drove to the offices of Morrison and Associates. Miranda's boss, Dana Morrison, was a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s who had built her law firm's reputation on integrity and discretion. She would not be pleased to learn that one of her senior associates was involved in a fraud scandal. Mr. Bruce, Dana said when her secretary showed me into her office. This is unexpected. Is everything all right with Miranda? That depends on how you define all right, I replied, setting my laptop on her desk. I have some information about my wife's recent activities that I think you should see. Dana's expression grew more serious as I showed her the evidence. The credit card fraud, the lies about working late, the compromising videos from the motel. By the time I finished, her face was stone cold. This is very disturbing, Mr. Bruce. If these allegations are true, Miranda has violated several of our firm's ethical guidelines. They're not allegations. They're facts, backed up by documentation and recorded confessions. Dana studied the credit card statements more closely. She was using joint marital funds to pay for these encounters? Every penny. Hotel rooms, expensive dinners, lingerie, spa treatments. I've been unknowingly funding my wife's affair for months. That could constitute fraud, depending on how the court interprets the use of marital assets. Dana closed my laptop and leaned back in her chair. Mr. Bruce, I appreciate you bringing this to my attention. The firm will need to conduct its own investigation, but based on what you've shown me, Miranda's employment here is in serious jeopardy. I understand. I'm not trying to destroy her career out of spite, but I won't be made a fool of either. Of course not, and no one should have to endure what you've been through. By Tuesday afternoon, Miranda had been suspended pending the firm's investigation. Her security clearance was revoked, her company credit cards were canceled, and her access to client files was terminated. She came home that evening looking like she'd aged 10 years in 2 days. Silas, we need to talk, she said, finding me in the garage where I was pretending to organize my tools. I'm listening. Dana showed me what you gave her, the videos, the financial records, all of it. Her voice was barely above a whisper. How could you do this to me? I set down the wrench I'd been holding and turned to face her. How could I do this to you? Miranda, you've been stealing from our family to fund an affair with your ex-boyfriend. You've been lying to everyone who cares about you for months, and you're asking how I could do this to you? I made a mistake. You made a choice. Every Thursday night for months, you made the same choice. You chose Derek over our marriage, chose lies over honesty, chose your own selfish desires over our family. Tears were streaming down her face now. I know I screwed up. I know I hurt you. But did you have to destroy my career? Did you have to humiliate me in front of everyone I work with? Yes, I said simply. Because that's what consequences look like. That's what happens when you betray the people who trust you. What about Leah? What about our daughter? She's going to find out about all of this. She already knows something's wrong. Teenagers aren't stupid, Miranda. She's been watching you lie and sneak around for months. At least now she'll know the truth instead of wondering what she did wrong. Miranda sank onto an overturned milk crate, her shoulders shaking with sobs. What do you want from me, Silas? What do I have to do to fix this? You can't fix this. You can't undo months of lies and betrayal with apologies and tears. You made your choice, and now you get to live with it. So that's it? 15 years of marriage, and you're just going to throw it all away? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. I'm not throwing anything away. You already did that. I'm just cleaning up the mess you left behind. Wednesday brought news that Derek's financial advisory business was under investigation by the state regulatory board. Apparently, several clients had filed complaints about his professional conduct after Carla had shared some of my evidence with Derek's business associates. His professional license was suspended pending a full review. I also received a call from my lawyer, confirming that Miranda's use of joint credit cards to fund her affair could indeed be considered fraud in divorce proceedings. California was a community property state, but judges tended to look unfavorably on spouses who misused marital assets for extramarital activities. Thursday evening, what would have been Miranda and Derek's usual motel night, I decided to pay Derek a visit at his apartment. I wanted to see how he was handling the collapse of his carefully constructed double life. Derek lived in a trendy complex in downtown LA, the kind of place with a doorman and valet parking. His apartment was on the 15th floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the city skyline. The kind of place that cost serious money he was no longer earning thanks to his suspended license. When he answered the door, Derek looked like hell. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his clothes were wrinkled, and his eyes were bloodshot. Behind him, I could see moving boxes stacked in the living room. What do you want, Silas? Just wanted to see how you were adjusting to your new reality. Looks like you're moving out? My lease is up next month, and I can't afford the rent without my business income. His voice was flat, defeated. Thanks to you, I'm probably going to lose everything. Thanks to me? Derek, you destroyed your own life. I just made sure everyone knew about it. You had no right. I had every right. You were screwing my wife and spending my money. That gives me all the rights I need. Derek stepped closer, and for a moment I thought he might try to hit me. Instead, he just stood there, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. You know what the worst part is, he said finally. Miranda doesn't even love me. She never did. This whole thing was just her way of feeling powerful, of having something you didn't know about. And I was stupid enough to think it meant something. Congratulations, Derek. You finally figured out what kind of person you were dealing with. Too bad it took losing everything to open your eyes. I left him standing in his doorway, surrounded by boxes and broken dreams. Part of me almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Friday afternoon brought the confrontation I'd been dreading. Miranda's parents, Gary and Ruth, arrived at our house unannounced, their faces grim with determination. Gary was a retired judge, used to commanding respect and getting his way. Ruth was a former prosecutor who had never liked me much to begin with. "Silas," Gary said when I opened the front door, "we need to talk." They pushed past me into the living room, where Miranda was sitting on the couch looking miserable. Leah was upstairs in her room, probably listening to every word through the thin walls. "We know what you did to our daughter," Ruth said, her voice sharp with accusation. "How you humiliated her, destroyed her career, ruined her reputation. It's unconscionable." "What's unconscionable," I replied, "is your daughter's decision to commit fraud and adultery. But I notice you're not here to talk to her about that." Gary stepped forward, trying to use his height and judicial bearing to intimidate me. "Miranda made a mistake, but that doesn't give you the right to destroy her life. A real man would handle this privately, with dignity." "A real man? Gary, your daughter has been stealing from our family to pay for hotel rooms where she could screw her ex-boyfriend. She's been lying to everyone, including our child, for months. And you think I should handle that with dignity? Marriage is about forgiveness. Marriage is about trust, respect, and honesty. Your daughter violated all three, repeatedly, deliberately." Ruth was getting angrier by the minute. "You're being vindictive and cruel. Miranda is the mother of your child, your wife of 15 years. Doesn't that mean anything to you?" "It meant everything to me. That's why this hurts so much." I looked at Miranda, who was staring at her hands in her lap. "But it obviously didn't mean anything to her." "That's not true," Miranda said quietly. "It meant something. It means something." "Then why did you throw it away?" She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. "I don't know. I honestly don't know. I was unhappy, and Derek made me feel special, important, like I was more than just a wife and mother and employee." "So you decided to become an adulteress and a thief instead?" Gary slammed his hand on our coffee table. "That's enough. You will not talk to our daughter that way." "Your daughter is 37 years old, Gary. She's not a child who made an innocent mistake. She's a grown woman who made calculated decisions to betray her family, and now she gets to face the consequences like an adult." "What consequences?" Ruth demanded. "What more do you want? You've already destroyed her career, humiliated her publicly. I want her to understand that actions have consequences. I want her to learn that she can't lie and cheat and steal without paying a price. And I want everyone else to know who she really is, so they can make informed decisions about whether to trust her." The argument continued for another hour, with Gary and Ruth making increasingly desperate attempts to blame me for Miranda's choices. Finally, they gave up and left, taking Miranda with them. She packed a suitcase and moved back into her childhood bedroom, a 37-year-old woman running home to Mommy and Daddy. That evening, Leah came downstairs and found me sitting alone in the kitchen, staring at a cup of cold coffee. "So Mom's really gone?" she asked, sliding into the chair across from me. "For now. Maybe permanently. I honestly don't know. Are you okay?" I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. She was growing up so fast, becoming a young woman right before my eyes. She deserved better than the chaos her mother had created. "I'm getting there," I said. "How are you doing with all this?" Leah shrugged, a gesture that reminded me painfully of Miranda. "I kind of saw it coming. Mom's been acting weird for months, always on her phone, always making excuses. I'm not stupid. I know you're not. I'm sorry you had to go through this." "It's not your fault, Dad. Mom made her own choices." Smart kid. Smarter than her mother, apparently. 2 weeks later, Miranda asked to meet me for coffee. She suggested a neutral location, a Starbucks downtown, busy enough that neither of us would be tempted to make a scene. I agreed, curious to hear what she had to say now that the dust had settled. She looked terrible. Her usually perfect hair was limp and unwashed. Her designer clothes had been replaced with jeans and a wrinkled t-shirt, and she'd lost weight in all the wrong places. The confident, successful attorney I'd married was gone, replaced by someone who looked defeated and broken. "Thank you for coming," she said when I sat down across from her. "What do you want, Miranda?" "I want to apologize. Really apologize, not just say the words, because I think it's what you want to hear." She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup like she was trying to draw warmth from it. "I know I hurt you. I know I betrayed you and Leah and everyone who trusted me, and I know saying sorry doesn't fix anything." "You're right, it doesn't. I've been seeing a therapist, trying to understand why I did what I did, why I made such terrible choices." "And what has your therapist told you?" Miranda was quiet for a long moment, staring into her coffee. "That I was selfish. That I was so focused on what I thought I was missing that I forgot to appreciate what I had. That I convinced myself I deserved to be happy, even if it meant hurting the people I loved. At least you're finally being honest about something. I want to try to make things right, Silas. I know I can't undo what I did, but maybe we can find a way to move forward, for Leah's sake, if nothing else. I leaned back in my chair, studying her face. What exactly are you proposing? Counseling, marriage counseling, a chance to see if we can rebuild what I destroyed. And Derek? Derek is out of my life completely. I haven't spoken to him since that night at the motel. I won't speak to him ever again. Because you realized he was using you, or because you got caught? Miranda flinched like I'd slapped her. Both, I guess. Does it matter? It matters to me. It matters whether you're sorry for what you did, or just sorry you got caught doing it. I'm sorry for what I did. I'm sorry for hurting you, for lying to Leah, for throwing away 15 years of marriage for something that was never real to begin with. I wanted to believe her. Part of me still loved the woman she used to be before the lies and betrayal. But trust, once broken, was almost impossible to rebuild. I need time to think about it, I said finally. How much time? I don't know. Maybe a lot. Maybe forever. Miranda nodded, tears starting to flow again. I understand. I hope you can find a way to forgive me eventually. Not for my sake, but for yours. All this anger, all this hatred, it's going to eat you alive if you let it. After she left, I sat in that Starbucks for another hour, thinking about forgiveness and consequences and whether some betrayals were too deep to ever heal from. I thought about Leah, who deserved to have both her parents in her life. I thought about the 15 years Miranda and I had shared before everything went wrong. But I also thought about Derek's wallet under the car seat, about the lies and the stolen money and the months of deception. I thought about how foolish I'd felt, how humiliated and betrayed. By the time I left that coffee shop, I'd made my decision. The next morning, I called my lawyer and filed for divorce. No more chances, no more counseling, no more false hope. Miranda had made her choice when she decided to betray our marriage, and now I was making mine. The divorce proceedings were swift and brutal. Miranda's affair and financial fraud made it easy for my lawyer to argue for a favorable settlement. I got the house, primary custody of Leah, and most of our assets. Miranda got her freedom and the knowledge that everyone in her professional and social circles knew exactly why her marriage had failed. Derek's life had collapsed just as completely. His financial advisory license was permanently revoked after the regulatory investigation found evidence of professional misconduct. He'd been forced to move back in with his parents in Phoenix, a 40-year-old man starting over from scratch. Carla had made sure that everyone in their social circle knew about his cheating, effectively blacklisting him from the dating scene. But the final confrontation came 6 months later, at Leah's high school graduation. Miranda showed up with her parents, looking nervous and out of place. Derek, apparently, had driven down from Phoenix to support her, a decision that showed he still hadn't learned anything about appropriate boundaries. I spotted them in the parking lot after the ceremony, standing next to Gary's Mercedes and talking in low, urgent voices. Miranda looked panicked when she saw Derek, like his presence was the last thing she wanted. But Derek seemed oblivious to her discomfort, probably thinking this was his chance to win her back now that her marriage was officially over. I walked over to them, Leah beside me in her cap and gown, carrying her diploma and a bouquet of flowers I'd bought her. "Derek," I said pleasantly, "what a surprise to see you here." He straightened up, trying to look confident despite the fact that he'd clearly been crying. "Silas, I just wanted to congratulate Leah on her graduation." "That's very thoughtful of you. I'm sure she appreciates the support from her mother's friend." Leah looked between Derek and Miranda with the kind of disgust only teenagers could muster. "I don't know who this guy is, and I don't want his congratulations." Derek's face crumpled. "Leah, I know this is complicated, but I care about your mother, and that means I care about—" "You don't care about anyone but yourself," Leah interrupted. "You helped destroy my family. Stay away from me and stay away from my mom." Miranda was staring at the ground, her face red with embarrassment. Gary and Ruth were trying to pretend this wasn't happening, looking anywhere but at Derek. "I think you should leave," I told Derek. "This is a family event, and you're not family." "Miranda and I?" "Miranda and you what?" "You're not together, Derek. You never were together. You were just two selfish people using each other to feel better about your pathetic lives." Derek's composure finally snapped completely. "You destroyed everything. My business, my reputation, my relationship with Miranda. You took it all away from me." "I didn't take anything from you. You threw it all away the moment you decided to screw another man's wife. You want someone to blame? Look in the mirror. I loved her. No, you didn't. You loved the idea of having something that belonged to someone else. You loved feeling superior to the stupid husband who didn't know what was going on. But you never loved Miranda, and she never loved you. I turned to Miranda, who was still staring at the ground. Tell him, Miranda. Tell Derek how you really feel about him now that you've lost everything. She looked up slowly, her eyes filled with tears and something that might have been hatred. He's right, Derek. I never loved you. I used you to feel better about my own life, and you used me because you thought it made you special. We were never in love. We were just two selfish people hurting everyone around us. Derek staggered backward like she'd physically struck him. That's not true. What we had was real. What we had was pathetic, Miranda said, her voice growing stronger. We were pathetic. Sneaking around like teenagers, lying to everyone who cared about us, destroying our lives for something that was never worth it. Miranda, please. Go home, Derek. Go back to Phoenix and try to build a real life with someone who actually wants to be with you. Because I don't. I never did. Derek looked around at all of us, me, Miranda, Leah, Gary, Ruth, and seemed to finally understand that he was completely alone. No one wanted him there. No one cared about his pain or his regrets or his desperate attempts to salvage something from the wreckage he'd helped create. He walked away without another word, getting into a beat-up Honda that was a far cry from the Mercedes he'd been driving during his affair with Miranda. I watched him drive away and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no anger, no pity, just emptiness where all that rage used to be. Miranda was crying again, but these weren't tears of self-pity. They looked like tears of relief, like she'd finally let go of something that had been poisoning her life. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For making me see who I really was, for forcing me to face the consequences of what I did, for not letting me hide from the truth. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Part of me wanted to comfort her, to tell her everything would be okay. But that wasn't my job anymore. I wasn't her husband, wasn't responsible for her emotional well-being. That chapter of my life was over. Leah took my arm and started walking toward our car. Come on, Dad, let's go home. As we drove away from the graduation ceremony, I caught a glimpse of Miranda in my rearview mirror, standing alone in the parking lot while her parents got into their car. She looked small and lost, like someone who had finally realized the true cost of her choices. Derek was gone, his life in ruins. Miranda was alone, her career destroyed, and her family broken. And I was free. Free from the lies, free from the betrayal, free from the constant wondering what was real and what was deception. They had wanted to play games with other people's lives, to take what they wanted without considering the consequences. Instead, they had lost everything that mattered, while I had gained something more valuable than revenge. The knowledge that I was stronger than I'd ever imagined, and that some battles are worth fighting, no matter how much they cost. I glanced over at Leah, who was scrolling through photos of her graduation on her phone, and smiled. We were going to be okay. Better than okay. We were going to be free.